Folks, hello, welcome to your Thursday. I hope you're having a fantastic week. Today, we're going to be going over your weekly serving of lore. Sometimes we do one video, sometimes we do two. Today to Salamanders, a legion that I think is one of the most neglected legions in Warhammer 40,000, to say the very least. Before you do anything else though, if you're getting any models this week, or in the next couple of weeks, consider going to Composite Games and giving them some business. They do help out the channel a lot with getting us some models and making sure that we have prizes, hopefully, when we get towards the summer. So, go there, enter in the promo code Northern Exile down below, and get yourself 5% off at checkout. That goes to help us and the channel, so thank you very much to them. Especially in the current climate of rising prices, because, god damn it. Let's get into it, shall we? Alrighty. So, the Salamanders, the most neglected legion? Definitely in my eyes, yes. This is the very reason I'm using the Salamanders as the chapter from which my Renegade/Chaos Warband comes from, right? The Salamanders are a puddle of a legion and a chapter, unfortunately, in the current lore, right? Even their Horus Heresy books are terrible. Terrible and boring. They don't do anything for the chapter at all, or the legion, right? So, the army that I'm writing at the moment, they currently have a darker side to the Salamanders, and we're showing a more nuanced side to the Salamanders. But anyway, moving on, the Salamanders have an interesting culture that is hardly explored. They have a nature that is strange in how it interacts with the wider setting, and a Primarch who feels the infuriating need to lose to almost any other Primarch he comes across, regardless of their power level. No matter who Vulcan meets, he loses, right? These are the Salamanders, the most infuriating and outright bad, quote-unquote, legion within the Horus Heresy. Now, I know a lot of you will be into Salamanders who are watching this video, and I applaud you for doing that, because, god damn it, Games Workshop do not make it very easy, do they? Wherever the Salamanders are, they're either being very nice, or they're losing. One of the two things, especially if you're Vulcan too. But there are some good things to their legion, though. Not just their chapter, but the legion. The Salamanders, as I've just said, have a fantastic culture. Nocturne is perfect as a homeworld, and I always love the burning red eyes and pitch black skin of the people of the world that they exhibit, right? It gives the Salamanders a completely unique look and feel. They don't look like any other Space Marine chapter. And I love them for that. That's awesome, right? They look absolutely brilliant. If you were going to make an entire race of dudes who are good at smithing things and creating weapons, that's what they would look like. Massive dudes, you know, skin charred black by the beating suns of their homeworld, coal red eyes from the forge. Man, they look epic. They look amazing. Their penchant for creating master-crafted gear is always something I have seen as seriously undeveloped by Games Workshop, but it is still something that is really cool. Their homeworld is a smith's paradise of ore deposits and constant geothermal activity. This should be a race of artisans and warriors, okay? Games Workshop kind of lean into that, but like most of the things in the Salamander's arsenal, it's very underdeveloped and not very well made. The act of self-sacrifice the Salamanders have is really cool, but it's also kind of out of nowhere and formed by their role in the early Horus Heresy rather than their actual culture and makeup as a people, right? I like legions to be formed of where they come from, not what they do in the Horus Heresy. So the Horus Heresy, the Salamanders are essentially the guys who are sent in to do the impossible on a daily basis. They're sent in to protect imperial populations and things like that. And so they developed a really good reputation for being heroic. And that's all well and good, but it's not very elegant, right? Games Workshop's at its best when it makes factions and armies that are elegant in that the strengths of the army naturally occur over time, rather than just being given to them by how they fight in the Horus Heresy, right? Vulcan also has a lot of potential as a Primarch, and a perpetual one at that. It is, unfortunately, his perpetual nature, is unfortunately something Games Workshop do not take advantage of, and they turn it into a bit of a meme. Because of course they do, right? Of course they do. Being nice is not something to be proud of in 40k. In fact, it gets you and a lot of your men killed. We have nice Marines. They're called Ultramarines, right? Do they do some pretty shitty things? Yes, but they're warriors. They're supposed to. And the Ultramarines keep winning. The Salamanders, however, tend to come across as naive in the extreme, and this can lead to problems in different war zones and in taking them seriously. Why would you want to collect a force of nice Marines that keep losing when you already have a nice Marine set, the Ultramarines, who keep winning? You know? The Salamanders are the losers of this setting, unfortunately, and if you like the Salamanders, I'm really sorry that Games Workshop does this to your army. Alright? I don't like the name, Salamanders. I know, controversial. I know. Please don't jump down my throat. I don't like the name Salamanders. I've never really liked it as a title for a legion of serious warriors. It's like calling your legion the Space Geckos or something. It just doesn't work and immediately makes me back off mentally from anything the legion tends to do, right? The Salamanders is not a good name for a legion. Or any fighting force, to be honest with you. The Salamanders within the Horus Heresy literally do nothing. Everywhere they turn, they are getting hammered by others. Wherever Vulcan dares show his face, one of his brothers caves it in with relatively little effort. They are literally the punching bag of chaos throughout the Horus Heresy, and whilst other legions go on from Eastvan and the Dropsite Massacre to recover a lot of their honour, the Salamanders never really do. They don't have a Shadrach Medusan or Icona Sharokin to pull them out of the mire and make them cool again. They are left with shockingly little, to the point I find it amazing when people actually collect them. In fact, I think people collect them simply because no one else does, so they look more striking on the tabletop. I think that's one of the only reasons why people collect Salamanders. Honestly, I do. It's a shame. It is a real shame that this is a legion that is so underdeveloped and doesn't get much love. So, what would I change? What would I change? Well, here's the interesting bit of the video, because I've gone over positives and negatives in a very loose way in this one, mainly because, to be honest with you, the Games Workshop doesn't give you a lot to go on, right? It says these guys are artisans, they make mastercrafted weaponry, they have the Cult of Nocturne. Fair enough, okay, that's interesting, but at the same time, it's so underdeveloped and looked at that every single piece of lore I've come across, even the wiki, says very little about what the Salamanders actually do with this Nocturne cult, how it works, and what they're trying to do, right? And even their means for bringing back Vulcan with his artifacts is very wishy-washy and doesn't really get explained. How will these artifacts bring him back? We don't know. We have no idea. It's like somebody has got into the Salamanders with a load of ideas and hasn't really fleshed them out. I honestly think the Salamanders are due for a big concentration of lore in the near future. I don't think it's coming, though, because Games Workshop seem completely enamoured with, Ultramarines versus Chaos. That seems to be the only thing that they want to concentrate on at any one period of time, which is a shame. But I think the Salamanders should be brought into the wider setting of Warhammer 40,000 in a much more concrete way, maybe simply so we can flesh them out. Because unlike the White Scars, as we discussed last time, who keep popping up in these other war zones, at least they're there. Right? We don't discuss them very much, but they're there. The Salamanders are never really anywhere, or used for anything. Okay? Even people like the Raven Guard have chapters like the Raptors, and maybe even the Carcharodons, who are descended from them, who give them more depth. Do you know what I mean? But the Salamanders don't have anything. And that's a shame. That's a real shame. So let's change that, shall we? So, what would I change? Nocturne, in the Exile verse, is a place of dragons, not salamanders. It is essentially a world akin to Earth in the movie Reign of Fire. Hammered by dragons constantly until Vulcan arrives and leads the knights of this Doom-like feudal world into a massive crusade against the beasts. They bring them down and end up wearing armour of dragon bone and dragon scales. In our setting, we actually move the Void Dragon from Mars to Nocturne. Now, if you don't know who the Void Dragon is, he is a Necron Shard god. He is a god consciousness that is on Mars, and he was beaten and put there by the Emperor. Well, in this setting, he's not on Mars. He's on Nocturne. This Necron god consciousness takes the form of a dragon as it pleases him, right? It pleases the Necron god to become a dragon because he thinks it's funny, because he likes the way that these dragons look. And Vulcan actually dies just as the Emperor is about to arrive whilst battling the Void Dragon, right? He kills the Void Dragon, but he dies in the attempt. Something strange happens, however, as the soul of the Void Dragon and Vulcan, they merge, creating a perpetual in Vulcan who has the technological knowledge and memories of the Void Dragon deep within him. Alrighty, letting that sink in for a minute. Vulcan rebuilds Nocturne as the Emperor arrives and joins the Great Crusade. He calls his legion the Iron Drakes, or Iron Dragons, whichever you feel sounds cooler. It is said that only a weapon made by his own hand and carrying the heart of Nocturne within it could ever truly slay Vulcan. Which means he only ever makes weapons for those he favours completely. So while his legion makes weapons for everybody, right? And so they have a bit of a competition with the Mechanicus, right? Vulcan never really makes weapons for anybody because he knows his own weapons can probably kill him if he makes them properly, right? So only his greatest friends have them made for them. During the Great Crusade, the Iron Drakes are taken by Vulcan and thrown at the biggest beasts of the galaxy. As such, they very rarely fight against other humans, and are known by humanity as great heroes who take down the greatest and most dangerous alien threats and megafauna gracing the galaxy. Right, so the Iron Drakes don't really fight against human enemies, and so they're not really seen as bad guys or terrifying people by humanity. In fact, when a massive beast is tearing up a cityscape, when a Godzilla type monster is annihilating things in the galaxy, the Iron Drakes are called in to put it down and save people, which is why they have a heroic reputation. They don't have a heroic reputation because they're fucking nice. They have a heroic reputation because they're awesome. They don't even really get to fight the Eldar and other humanoids, but when a massive alien creature is discovered on a world wreaking havoc, the Iron Drakes are sent in to hunt it down and kill it. Essentially, the Iron Drakes become what a 40k Legion would look like if it were in the Monster Hunter universe, if you like that series of video games, okay? They even start taming and riding draconic beasts into battle, daubing their power armour with dragon scales and the skulls of great monsters they have slain in battle. They have rituals where they drop a marine on a death world, naked and alone, to survive and hunt the greatest beast they can before bringing them back to the Legion. Other legions are very wary of the Iron Drakes, as they are extremely nomadic and isolated. The Iron Drakes identify with the common people and will fight to protect them from the beasts out there in the universe. They have no mind for politics whatsoever. Whenever tournaments are held in friendly places for the legions to take part in against each other, the Iron Drakes place very well, their sheer size and ferocity making them hard to read and even harder to score wounds upon, such as the thickness of their skin. Vulcan uses his genius making weapons to create the Dragon Blades, swords and other weapons moulded to shape the hands of his favoured brothers with dragon bone laced Nocturne steel, which is impossibly sharp and durable. Each Primarch who is close to Vulcan, like his best friends essentially, is gifted one of the greatest and most legendary weapons in their arsenals, and one of the Dragon Blades. So that he makes them a Dragon Blade essentially. The Dragon Blade could be a hammer, it could be a maul, it could be a sword, could be anything, but they're called Dragon Blades, right? Horus even swaps out Worldbreaker for his Dragon Blade sword that will eventually be possessed by Drachnien at the Siege of Terra. So, Abaddon's sword is actually made by Vulcan. The base sword that gets possessed is made by Vulcan. That's where we switch that around a little bit, right? When the Horus Heresy kicks off, the Legion, like others, is almost annihilated at Istvan at the Dropsite Massacre. The remnants of the Legion stalk the stars as hunting fleets, taking down massive Chaos-aligned capital ships and hunting the greater demons the enemy can bring to bear. When they drift towards Terra, Malcador makes an appearance and considers them prime candidates for the Knights Errant. Dozens join up with him, with Vulcan's blessing, right? Whilst Dawn prepares the defences of Terra, Vulcan prepares the Sol system itself. He uses his arts to craft weapons that will cause the traitor fleet a lot of pain as it heads into the system. Vulcan is later called to Terra by Dawn after this, and tasked with what can only be described as a suicide mission. Find a way to halt the traitor advance. Buy Rogel Dawn time to finish making Terra ready to stand. Dawn knows he is sending Vulcan to his death, but also knows of the perpetual nature of Vulcan. Alright? Vulcan leaves the remnants of the Iron Drakes in the Sol system to fight the Siege of Terra, and heads out on his own, on one last great hunt. As the gathering of the traitor legions, the mustering for Terra that takes place in Slaves to Darkness happens, that's where he strikes. Essentially, we take the duel between Lemon Russ and Horus away from Lemon Russ, right? We take that away. He doesn't need it. And we give it to Vulcan. So he hunts down Horus and basically beats him into a coma that stalls the traitor advance for several months, giving Dawn more time to prepare. Vital time too. In doing so, however, he dies. For good this time. He doesn't come back. The blade that strikes the killing blow is the dragon blade he gifted to Horus. Horus runs him through with it, but it's a choice that Vulcan makes so that he can get close to Horus, where he snaps his neck with his bare fucking hands. This is chaos-infused Horus too, which gives more respect on Vulcan's name. The traitors actually bury Vulcan as a mark of respect, and Horus is brought back through the arcane arts of his inner circle. He is a changed man, however. Some of his soul is lost to the warp when he crossed over to the other side. This is why we see a much changed Horus at the Siege of Terra. He is now more warp stuff than man. Abaddon goes on to say later on that the real Horus was killed by Vulcan that day. He did not recognise the father that returned when they brought him back, which gives us a lot of rhythmic symmetry, right? Because now the sword that Abaddon holds, Drachnien, is the sword that killed Vulcan, right? But also the sword that caused his father, essentially, to be born again as more demon than man. It's the sword that cost him his father, essentially. All these things link in together, right? And finally, we give Vulcan and the Iron Drakes, the Salamanders, a bit of a purpose, right? The Iron Drakes fight with distinction on Terra. We can even create some more heroes for them, akin to like Shadowkin and people like that. Their legion is not split into chapters for many thousands of years, and they maintain a reputation as expert hunters of the biggest game in the galaxy. When the Tyranids show up in force, it is the Iron Drakes who are called in to save Ultramar by Marneus Calgar, right? He swallows his pride and calls the Iron Drakes. The Iron Drakes duly turn up and swing the tide of the war in favour of the Ultramarines by taking down the greatest beasts the Hive Fleet has, and even bringing down several of their massive bioships. So, what do you guys think? Have we redeemed the chapter of the Salamanders a little bit? Would you be interested in collecting the Iron Drakes? Or doing something similar with the Salamanders going forwards? I think they are truly one of the most underappreciated and underused people in Warhammer 40k. I truly do. And I really wish that we could do more with them. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Love you a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye.